welcome to the Willie Good Life. I'm Jennifer Willie, and today we're going to be talking about the hypercarnivore diet and how to become hypercarnivore. If you watched my last video, I talked about fat adaptation, keto adaptation, lifestyle, and the 3 diets associated within that lifestyle that fall kind of within a spectrum. If you want to see where you fall on that spectrum in terms of where to get started, go check that video out and you can get a lot of information on that. But today I'm going to be talking about the hypercarnivore diet. And basically what that means is you only eat 70% of your diet is meat. Yes, I said it, meat. And the other percentage is dairy, and a very, very small percentage of your diet has to do with plants. And when I say plants, I mean seasonings. Sometimes I drink coffee, black coffee, that's a plant. Unsweet tea, that's a plant. Anything along those lines, plant-based sweeteners, things like that, that falls under the category of plants. So, it's just, I very rarely eat them. And it's just, majority of the diet is just meat. Sometimes that's all I eat, is just meat. So you're looking at sort of not only meat in terms of protein meat, you're looking at a high fat content too. So you want fatty meats as well, because you're using fat as fuel for your body rather than carbohydrates. So with that being said, whenever you're choosing or you're endeavoring to go on this sort of diet, because it is a little bizarre and unusual, because this isn't what we're taught to eat meat mostly, you kind of have to understand that it's a lifestyle choice that you are making. This isn't a fad diet thing where you're just like, oh, this week I'm gonna be really strict on my hypercarnivore diet, and then the weekend comes and I can cheat because I've been really good during the week. It doesn't work that way. You're not going to get the benefits, and you're not going to be as successful as you could be by just following through and accepting it as a lifestyle. Now, as you move along, months and months and months, even years later, but I'll tell you, months and months later of being strict on this diet and being really dedicated, you can kind of every once in a while have a cheat day. It's not a big deal because your body becomes a lot more flexible, metabolically speaking. Your body's in tune with burning fat for fuel. It's like a machine. And so if you throw a carb in there every once in a while, like a treat, I mean, you'll have some carbs, of course, but like if you have something that's, high in carbohydrates as a cheat day one day for like a birthday or something like that, it's not going to like totally thwart all your efforts. It's easy for your body to kind of shift back into burning fat for fuel because that's what it's used to. But you've got to be doing that for quite a while before you can kind of have those days. So, when you do decide to go this route, you want to make sure you understand this is a lifestyle change. It's something you're going to have to dedicate yourself to do to get results. What I would say when you're starting out, I would set aside some time, dedicate a window of time to sit down and just kind of figure out, come up with a strategy how you're going to start addressing getting into this lifestyle. Part of it is your social life. You got to think about, okay, if I'm just eating meat and we're doing dinner parties, or, I'm going to a football party and all they're going to have is pizza, you got to kind of plan for that. A lot of times for me, I'll eat ahead of time. I'll eat before going to a party or an event. And then if you know what they're going to have, that always helps, so you can kind of plan accordingly. But you got to kind of consider your social life. Another thing you have to consider is your family life. It's one thing if you're single and it's just you, it's easy to make these changes, but you may have children and a husband or wife, and they may not want to do hypercarnivore with you. So you've got to, it's probably a good idea to sit down with them and come up with, so that they're on the same page with you, and kind of come up with something that works for them, works for you, so that it makes it easier, because it is quite a transition, especially when you've got others in your home that are eating differently. So, my husband in the beginning, when I transitioned over, he wasn't doing hypercarnivore with me, which was totally fine. But I was able to sort of remove things from the house that he didn't mind I removed. And, you know, there were times he was having pizza and drinking beer and doing whatever. And, you know, it was a little challenging at times, but really, I'll tell you, the benefit I got from this diet and the amazing results far outweighed any craving for pizza. And I love pizza, so that has to say a lot. I'm sorry, but it just does, because I love pizza. So you can just jump into it, but I really think it's a good idea to sit down and just kind of consider these variables. Because it does make a difference, and it does make it much more challenging in terms of getting the ball rolling. And, you know, when I say social life, I'm just saying, like, in the beginning, when you're trying to get, like, acclimated, when you're trying to get transitioned and used to this, you have to kind of consider those things, because it could thwart your efforts if you were, you know, put in a certain position. Later, it's not so bad as you move along. I'm talking about just getting started. So anyways, after you've done that, you've assessed all those avenues, the next thing to consider is food. Okay, so you got to think about food in terms of, you know, what I'm going to have for lunch at work. You know, if you do meal prep on Sundays for the week ahead, things like that, you got to start thinking about what foods you're going to stock your refrigerator with, what you're going to put in your house, and, you know, what foods are going to be a little more challenging for you to let go of. So let's just say, for example, you're a soda drinker. You love sodas. And I did for a while too. I had to kind of wean myself off of those. And there's a lot of great alternatives out there that you can use to kind of help you along the way. And so it's good to identify what things might be challenging for you when you're thinking about food. So where I would start is, you need to understand that on hypercarnivore, you only have a 10 to 15 carbohydrate window daily. That's all you can have. The good news is you can have tons of protein, you can have tons of fat. Like, you can eat fatty meat all day long. We're not looking at calories. You don't count calories on this diet. Ain't a problem. What you are looking at in terms of macros, you're looking at your carbohydrates, and you're looking at your fats, and you're looking at your proteins. Carbohydrates you want to keep between 10 and 15 a day. That's it. Protein and fats, you're good. You can consume that until you are totally satisfied, satiated, and then you don't eat again until you're hungry. So from there, the next thing you need to consider is, when you're selecting foods, it needs to be single ingredient whole foods, as close to that as you can get. Basically, it's just a single ingredient food. You know, there's no escaping a steak. A steak is just, you know, what it is, a steak. It doesn't have all these additives. It doesn't have all this other stuff. I mean, just, you know. But like when you're looking at packaged food, when you look at the ingredients, they have this huge ingredient list, and it's just like, you know, mind-boggling. You can barely understand half of the words and the terminology on there. So that's definitely not a single ingredient food. You want to stick to whole food, single ingredient foods. So you've got a 10 to 15 carbohydrate window allotment daily, and you want to stick to single ingredient whole foods. The next thing you have to consider on this diet, because fat is what you are relying on for energy, not carbohydrates, fat. And so you're trying to train your body to be a fat-fueled machine, basically. And so with that being said, when you choose meats, it's always smart to choose a meat that's at least on a 1-to-1 ratio, where it's like 50% fat, 50% meat. You're like 1-to-1, fat to meat. It makes it so much easier in meal planning. It makes it so much easier when you're choosing things. Because if you eat more of a lean meat, which for me in the beginning when I was transitioning, I preferred more lean meats. I wasn't, you know, I didn't have a palate for fattier meats. And so it took me a minute to kind of get to where I could eat fattier meats. And so I would get a lean meat, and I would just pair something fatty with it. Like you can boil eggs and eat eggs with your meat. That'll fatten it up. You can cook up some bacon and eat bacon with that. That will fatten it up. If it falls within your carbohydrate window, you can add some avocado to that if you prefer a plant-based something to fatten it up. But just once again, there's carbs in avocados, so you got to watch out for that. But there's all kinds of cool ways you can fatten up a lean protein so that you're not forcing yourself to eat something fatty. So as I moved along in this diet, I acquired a taste for fatty meats. And so like now, like used to, I would pick a filet. Now I'm more like ribeye. I love a ribeye. It tastes great. It's fatty and it's protein and fat. It's all wrapped up in one package and you're done. And it's delicious. But before I didn't have a taste for that. But you will acquire it. It takes some time. But just know you can do lean meats. You'll just have to learn how to pair them with fattier things so that you have some fuel, so that you have some energy from that. Especially in the beginning, you're going to need that because the transition into this lifestyle can be a little challenging because your body is trying to acclimate to that. And so you'll go into what's called like, the keto flu or something. And I'm going to do a video on that to help you, like some suggestions to help you with transitioning so that it's not so difficult or uncomfortable. But basically, you'll experience low energy times and things like that when you're transitioning. So you definitely want to keep your fat up in your diet. So another thing you have to consider when you're thinking about foods is basically seasonings, sauces, dips, and dressings. So all of those things have all kinds of sugar in them. And you may pick one up, and that's another thing I'm talking about is reading labels. So when you pick up a dressing, or you pick up a sauce, or you pick up a seasoning, even if it's seasoning, it may say no carbs. Look at the ingredients. Trust me. You go in there and it's like there's sugar. There's dextrose, whatever word they want to call sugar, it's in there. You got to watch out for that. You got to watch out for soy. You got to watch out for inflammatory things in your ingredients list. You don't want anything that has canola oil in it. If you're trying to find a salad, let's just say you want something, like a ranch dressing to dip something in, or you're just trying to find something for flavoring in the beginning because you're trying to get off of these highly flavorful foods and kind of transition into this diet. So sometimes, you're just trying to find things to help you. Beware, because you don't want canola oil. We're not looking to inflame your body. We're looking to reduce inflammation. So that's why I say single ingredient whole foods is what you're shooting for. And if you have to have sauces, dips, seasonings, and dressings, at least look at the ingredients list. Make sure there's no soy in there. Make sure there's no seed oils in there, sunflower oil, canola oil, any of those kind of oils. You want to stay away from that, and you also want to stay away from, obviously, sugar. So you're going to be more cognizant of that along the way when choosing foods and things that go with foods. So with that being said, within those parameters, I would suggest you sit down and just make a list of food you like. I like X, Y, and Z. And just make it real clear for yourself, and then plan out your week, like what you're going to eat for lunch, what you're going to have for breakfast if you eat breakfast. Same thing for dinner, whatever. You're going to come to find as you move along on this diet that you aren't going to be as hungry as you used to be. I promise you, it's bizarre. Like when my husband started this, and I did not push him into this was not me. He was looking at my progress and success and decided to try it for himself. And when he did, he actually texted me one day and was like, I can't believe it. Like, I am not hungry. He's like, normally, like right now, I want a snack. And he's like, I'm not hungry. Like, I could just keep going and going and going. And then when he got home, he's like, man, I just have all this energy. I can just keep going after work. And you're going to notice that. You will notice the energy. You will notice the brain fog going away. You'll notice the bloating going away. And you are definitely not going to be as hungry as you used to be. Like, I very rarely eat breakfast. And a lot of times I eat one meal a day. And that's if I'm not doing an extended fast. I do extended fasting sometimes, but day to day is usually 1 meal a day, and if I eat 2, the second one's like a small meal. So it's just fascinating how these foods will fill you up, keep you satiated, and fuel you through the day. You'll be amazed, I promise you. But either way, that should get you started. That should kind of give you an idea as to where you need to have your mind and where you need to kind of shift your focus if you're going to start this lifestyle. It is one that will definitely exceed your expectations. You'll be very happy, but you have to dedicate yourself and stick to it. And I just want to be realistic with you. Hopefully this video provided some information for you so that you can get started on the hypercarnivore diet. And if you like this video, please smash the like button for me. And if you'd like to see more videos like that, hit the subscribe button and I'll send a lot more your way. Until then, I'll see you next time, friends. Bye-bye.